Hi Sinead and Aisling, thank you so much for joining me.
No worries, nice to see you.
So lovely to see you, and thank you for rushing back from work as well.
Oh, no problem. That's all right.
So I just wanted to talk to you both today about obviously having siblings, two brothers who were diagnosed with ALD a little while ago, and kind of how it affected you, how life was. You know, you guys have been through so much. You know, it's just, you know, your absolute credit to your parents in how you've kind of, you know, how you've turned out.
Thank you so much.
So you were very young, weren't you, when Ruairi and Tom were diagnosed?
Yeah, I think I was probably, so Ruairi was 6, I think, so that would have made me about 8.
Yeah, I was a baby, I was only 2.
Oh,
yeah.
Is that right? Because if you were 2, I would have been 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
I'm pretty sure I was 2.
I always thought I was. Oh no, I would have been 6.
Yeah, so really
Yeah.
was.
No, I messed up. I was 6.
Yeah, I'll take it from there.
So obviously your lovely mum kind of did lots of homework to find Professor Colin Stewart in Bristol to kind of help treat the boys, because there just wasn't anyone, there wasn't any specialists in Ireland who could help at the time, was there? They were kind of told to take the boys home and love them, weren't they? And
Yeah,
they had to fight for us to find a treatment.
yeah, well, even in the first place, just to get a diagnosis, when they first went in, they were diagnosed with salmonella, and I don't remember this, but Mum was telling me that they literally had people come out to the house to watch how she was cooking the food to make sure that, that it wasn't her terrible cooking. Which, you know, I feel like we still can't rule that out, really, can we? You know.
Remember, I know your mum very well.
Is she gonna watch this? Hi, Mum.
So quite quickly it became apparent that Ruairi, first of all, needed a transplant and needed one as soon as possible, and this was obviously in Bristol. And very fortunately, Aisling, you were a match to Ruairi, so you were his donor. Did you kind of understand at the age of 6? I mean, did you understand what you were kind of doing, or was it just something you were told you had to do?
Well, it's funny because I still remember the conversation my mum and dad had with me about being a donor, and they really did put it like they explained, like, your brother's not well and he needs to have a bone marrow transplant, and then they kind of explained what that was as best they could, and they said that, do you remember when everyone had their blood taken, you were a match and so was Sinead, but because you're older, you're bigger, you have more blood and everything, and you would be a better candidate to do this. But they really did say it's completely up to you, and we're not going to force you to do anything. And I remember asking what would happen if I didn't, and they said, well, we'd search for another donor, and Sinead is still a bit too small, and Ruairi might get sicker, but he might be okay, we just don't know. And I remember thinking, like, oh, well, it's pretty straightforward, isn't it? I'll just go do that. I was like, this is a no-brainer. Why are you asking me?
Yeah, it makes it feel like a conscious choice as well to do that.
Yeah, no, it did, because I remember thinking, like, feeling really like a part of it.
Yeah.
Like I remember, like, I don't know whether if I said no, they'd have been like, go on, you're going to. But it really did make me feel like I'd made the decision, and it made it really easy, if that makes sense. Like, it was something that I'd chosen to do for my brother, as opposed to something my parents had told me to do, which I don't think for any kid would necessarily be go down well, but it's like brush your teeth, go to bed, do this.
Yeah, no, I mean it's lovely, you know, that mum and dad, you know, gave you that choice kind of thing, you know, because they must have been so sort of thankful. I didn't realise you were a match as well, Sinead. You were lucky. You were a little tiny person, but you know, your mum and dad must have just thought, you know, this is just fantastic, you know, to have a match in the family, because obviously having a family match is, you know, it's the best thing you can have, kind of thing. So, you know, that was great. So you went in and you donated your cells, and when you came back to the ward,
well, Mum's told you about this.
So you might want to share what you decided when you came back to the ward.
Well, it was my moment in the sunshine, and I decided I decided to laugh it up and make every moment of it. I remember Dad. I think it was Dad came to come get me because I was well enough to go home, and I was adamant that I was not going anywhere. Because one of the nurses had told me that one of the like play coordinators or someone was coming to see me later on, and I was adamant that I wasn't leaving. I was promised a night in hospital, so I was actually hospital. I made the decision to be here, and I would be. I made this little thing like where you can like clip photos onto, and I painted it with the activity coordinator, and it's still hanging up in our kitchen.
Aww.
Yeah, so that's nice.
One of my like earliest memories is in the little play area for kids who weren't actually being treated for something to do.
Yeah.
With this man, John, who used to volunteer there, and he like spent lunchtimes with me and stuff. And there's quite a similar thing. A doctor that the family became quite close to, walking up to her and going, "Can I have a sleepover at yours tonight?" And she was going, "Oh, you miss your mum and dad?" And I was going, "No, I won't. I won't. I promise you, I won't." She was like, "I'm uncomfortable." What did I do?
But yeah, no, I mean, it's lovely that you've got such like happy memories of, you know, such a traumatic time, and you know, possibly you were lucky that you were young, so you didn't maybe understand completely the enormity of it. But yeah, the playroom at Bristol Children's Hospital is great. I spent a long time in there.
I still remember like the sand pits and the little water pits.
Yeah. They had a little like rocking horse as well, didn't they?
Yeah, I miss it. I don't want to work anymore. I want to be back in the Bristol Children's Hospital area.
You should have become a paediatric nurse. You could have.
I'm Mr. Dirty pollution. Yeah. I'll go back to uni. I'll convert.
And of course, then I think it was about 6 months later, wasn't it? It became apparent that Tom also needed a transplant. So it was all kind of very quick, wasn't it? But unfortunately, neither of you were a match to Tom, so he had an unrelated donor, didn't he? So
Welsh.
And he's
Andrew.
Oh, I didn't know his name.
Well, I
Probably should.
don't know if I can say his name on the video, just well, but
yeah. Summer.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I think Tom still got a little picture of him and his donor on his bedside windowsill, which is really sweet. Yeah, I don't really remember them meeting, but I know that Mum sent like a letter through the hospital with her and my dad's contact details, and just like a letter of thank you. I don't know how you'd go about writing a thank you letter of that kind, but I think it ended with if you'd ever like to contact us to meet Tom or anything like that, here's our details. And yeah, I think obviously he did, and yeah, because I think he in Wales at the time it was an opt-out system, so he was contacted, and I think he was a bit unsure at first because he was like, oh, I think he signed up to give blood,
Yeah.
And then he was like, oh, now I'm going to be a bone marrow donor. But, yeah. But I think he had to think about it, and he like, it was really, really brave of him, because like obviously I was a kid, and it's really straightforward when you're a kid. It's like, yeah, you don't know all the ins and outs and all the things that could be scary about it. But yeah, so yeah, no, we're forever grateful that he
amazing man.
Yeah,
no, absolutely. And obviously Tom had fantastic outcome. Well, he was very poorly during his transplant, but once they managed to get him over that, he's had a fantastic outcome, hasn't he? And just finished university, and all sorts of great stuff. Unfortunately, Rory obviously didn't have quite as good an outcome, because he had more active ALD in his brain when he went through transplant. But he's still, he's absolutely amazing, isn't he? The things that he achieves every day, let alone every month or every year.
It's such an amazing role model to grow up with, because I think despite all the adversity that he's faced in being deaf-blind, epileptic, autistic, he goes out and he does the most amazing things every single day. And it's just, I don't know, it just shows you.
It makes me feel so lazy.
Yeah, like, I do think.
Rory will be like, we'll ask you how your week's been. You're just like, oh, I went to work, and then I came home and I didn't do the washing up, and I was watching TV.
Went to bed.
And he's like, well, I went out foraging, and I made this cheesecake, and
like the cliff diving,
and I just done a walk.
Yeah, I'm learning a new language. You're really showing me up here.
When will be amazing this end? Stop showing us up.
He just, he never ceases to amaze me. Sort of, because obviously I've known your family for a very long time. So I think 18 years now.
Wow.
Because my son Cameron had his transplant just after Tom's. So, we were kind of in it together, which was, was amazing. To sort of, still be in touch all these years later. It's
I know my mum really values you.
so lovely.
Mum and Dad both do.
Yeah.
Firm friendship.
Yeah.
Sort of, adversity.
I think that's really important as well when people have a diagnosis in the family, is to have that support network and just talk to other families that have been through it.
Yeah, or going through the same thing, like in that situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't feel so alienated then.
And, when it's a rare disease, feeling like you're the only person who has this disease, because, much as it's awful if, a family member is diagnosed with, say, cancer or whatever, people are used to the word cancer. Most people know someone who's had cancer. But when you say adrenoleukodystrophy, people just have no idea, do they?
Yeah, it's big concern.
They can't, and then, you end up kind of explaining it. I mean, growing up, how was it having a rare disease in the family? Was it just there in the background and it was just kind of carry on as normal, or, did it change as you got older? When friends, say, asked you what was wrong with Rory, how did that kind of affect you? How did you kind of feel with those kind of questions, if you were asked those questions?
I think growing up with it, obviously, I understood it wasn't a normal family situation, but our parents worked really hard making sure we didn't take it out on each other. And that's, we're a very well-functioning family unit, and that's definitely helped. I think something that I've realised growing up is that I don't feel uncomfortable talking about it, but I can't control other people's reactions, and they might think, I sort of, oh my god. but you can't control that. It's just how they feel. And as soon as they meet us, I think people generally think, like, wow, that's amazing. They've come so far as a family.
Yes.
If I may say so myself. Just bring your own job.
Yeah, no, I think like whenever we were growing up, mum and dad used to make sure that we'd do loads of different activities and together, and we'd always be like out and about doing things. Like we wouldn't be at home at the weekend. We'd be like out going for a walk, or we'd be going to Creely Adventure Park, or like if we went on holiday and we'd go somewhere where Rory would have like heaps of activities that he loved, like he loves water slides and roller coasters.
An adrenaline junkie.
He is an adrenaline junkie, yeah. But like that was great, because like when we were kids, if we went to Disneyland, Rory would have his like a special needs pass, and we could just go on to the front of the queue every time.
So you wanted to take Rory everywhere with you. You didn't want to go on this.
Rory would be like, I want to go on the biggest and fastest roller coaster in the park, and we'd be like, yes.
It's not to say that it doesn't come without hardships. Like obviously, Rory's been in and out of hospital intermittently, like on holiday, like at home.
Yeah.
And that always comes as a surprise, and that's not easy.
And you've always got it like in the back of your head, like, if Rory's unwell, you're always like, oh, I'm like just trying to get, like, if
it holds more weight than if someone without ALD would be poorly.
Yeah, exactly. I'm really glad. Yeah, I was really struggling. Yeah. See, this is why it's good to have someone else that knows what's going on, because they know what you're thinking about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, it is hard, isn't it? And you know, there's always the really difficult times. I mean, I remember the time when Rory was having an awful lot of seizures, wasn't he? Kind of anywhere and everywhere, and that must have been really, you know, seizures aren't nice, and you know, for you girls to see them as well must have been, you know, quite frightening. It's frightening for an adult, let alone you know, when you were younger.
I think especially, I mean, we've both been trained now, but when we didn't know how to help, you just sort of feel a bit helpless watching it happen. But
I always, like, Mum, whenever the community nurse came out to train some of Rory's carers, I would like sit in and listen and get like a bit of training. And but I remember, like, whenever he had a seizure, Mum and Dad would always like tell us, like, you like grab some pillows, you move that out the way, and it would all be about the communication. And one of us would always sit down and talk calmly to him, and just we would literally just say anything, like just talk about, like, oh, and now Dad's running into the room looking really panicked.
Yeah, a lot of it is about Aaron.
Yeah, and we'd like talk calmly, make jokes and laugh, and he, although he couldn't process the actual words, he could hear the soothing voices, and that helped. But I do remember there was one time when he was having a seizure and he started choking, and I remember just like that was just too much for me, and I remember like crying, but I knew that I had to leave the room because Rory could still hear what was going on. So I kind of panicked, and Mum was like, it's okay, like the ambulance is coming, and it's gonna be fine, we're doing all that we can. You need to do either chat to Rory or go outside. And like I went outside, calmed down, came back, and then I just sat and chatted with him, and eventually he was fine. But
it's nice knowing you can take that time, and it's like he's still safe because our parents are very good.
Yeah. And it is just like trusting everyone else in the family to know that they're doing what's kind of like best for.
And it's kind of knowing what each other's role is in any kind of given time, or you know, if there is a sort of crisis or whatever, so that you know you're very well organised, and I'm sure your mum is the one who organised it. And of course, Aisling, now you're a nurse. So do you think that the boy's illness had any bearing on your choice of career, or was it just something that you always wanted to do?
No, it wasn't like being a nurse wasn't something that I always had in my head that I was going to do. But like I remember coming to the week before the deadline for my personal statement for university, and I hadn't decided what I wanted to do at uni. I hadn't really started on my personal statement. I'd made a big long list of all of the extracurricular activities I'd done, and I paired that with my subjects that I'd chosen, which were biology, psychology, and philosophy and ethics. And then I remember looking down at my list of extracurricular activities, and it was like St. John Ambulance, and like doing I can't remember what I did. And volunteering with a group of older adults with learning difficulties, and like I was just looking down this list, and I was like, all of these are very like healthcare related.
Yeah.
I seem to have a hobby here that I've not noticed. But our mum used to be a nurse, and I think she obviously like loved the idea of us getting into it as well. And like because you do bank shifts and you've worked in
care homes and volunteering as well.
Yeah, so it kind of runs in the family, the whole caring aspect of it. So I don't know whether, because like you do like loads of my colleagues, you ask them whether they've got nurses or like in the family, and like our granny was a physio, and like it seems to be.
I think so. We were probably better equipped than other people for starting the job because, like, medical crises don't frighten us.
Yeah. You see most things. And actually, I think it's fantastic to have people within the the healthcare system who have got lived experience with someone with special needs. Because so me included, and your mum will have experienced this, and lots of our families experience. They turn up at a hospital appointment or for an admission, and quite frankly, the nurses kind of look and think, oh my goodness, I don't know what to do with this person who's deaf, blind, can't speak properly, that kind of thing. Which of course is no help to the parents there who need that support. So I just think it's fantastic, and the fact that you can then disseminate what you know to other people, and if they see you being comfortable, then it probably helps them to be comfortable as well.
Definitely. I know I have had like patients on my ward who have come in and they've had like learning difficulties or like difficulties with their speech, and I know there's one chap that I've got in my head who came in, and the nurse he came in, and the nurse before him only was looking after him for like I think 2 or 3 hours, but she said kind of implied that he was a little bit confused, and I went and I was like, I'm just gonna like first thing I'm gonna do is just go like say hello, introduce myself, like ask how he is and kind of get an idea, and I realized that it was just like his speech, and like he was absolutely fine. It was just not having that understanding, or even just the time to be able to go and like take the extra time.
And it takes patience as well to actually have to sit and listen to someone. We all think we're listening, but actually we often don't listen, do we? We just kind of, it's there, and it's that kind of active listening and kind of concentrating on the person, which I know, nurses are always so busy, but it's, even just taking 5 minutes to actually focus on that person makes the world of difference, doesn't it?
Yeah, well that's it. It's just trying to prioritize that, and like you do find you never have enough time with the people that you're looking after ever, but if you do just take that 5 minutes to really be like I can leave my notes till later, or that person can can, you know, like wait for me to explain this thing to them, that this person just needs to know that they're safe and that who I am. And
that's
what's
really
happening.
valuable when you're in hospital as well, because it can be quite like an isolating time.
Yeah, definitely. But you know, like I know, like with whenever I don't know, when it, like just having the healthcare experience with whenever Mum or Rory have gone into hospital, it's been quite useful because like Mum used to be a nurse, but I like I'll know kind of how the hospital systems are working, or what the nurse might be doing in that moment, or what might help for them to know, or how to phrase things so they know how to like help Rory or
Yeah.
But it doesn't always work, but
at least you can try.
Yeah.
And Sinead, you've climbed Mount Kilimanjaro.
I did do that.
Lots of money for the charity, which was amazing. And you've travelled all over. I remember you left our last week community weekend, and you were going off travelling, weren't you?
Yeah, I was going to India Nepal.
Yes. So now you've done all of that, I understand you're now going to university.
I know, finally. I kept telling people I was taking another gap year, and they're like, you're not actually going to go. I'll take another gap year, but 4 years out of college I am going and can do politics and international relations.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, I know, I'm nervous, but excited.
Yeah, that'll...
Thank you.
Yeah,
She's very good at arguing. But I think that comes from being an advocate for Rory.
Yeah, it's true.
As well.
You know how to articulate yourself quite well.
Yeah, you do, really do.
Thank you.
Sinead is much better at articulating herself than I am.
That's not true.
I mean, you did just help me out earlier.
Yeah, you've done the same. We're not degrading ourselves.
I'm alright at it, she's the best.
I'm not going to be able to string a sentence together now. I've set you up for it now. But yeah, going to uni in the next month or so.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
Great. It'll be very different, won't it? It's going to be very different with all
I was thinking, because it's all going to be online. So
yeah.
For at least the first 3 weeks.
Yeah.
See how it goes. It won't be the proper uni experience for a while. But
yeah,
I don't know. I'm there for the course anyway.
We've all just got to get on with it, haven't we? And
yeah.
And you've had fun anyway, so
yeah, I I've had most fun.
Yeah, all these people that left uni when, like, all your friends that left uni, they've had 1 year of fun.
It's true.
And now COVID's happened.
Yeah.
So
who's the real winner?
let's go.
So the other thing I wanted to mention was obviously Mum's got AMN, and
yes.
you know, she's had walking difficulties from actually a really quite young age, you know, and suffered lots of falls and that kind of thing. You know, she and sort of, I haven't seen her for a while, but you know, last time I saw her, she was, you know, definitely struggling more than
yes.
So obviously that was added into the mix as well of, you know, growing up as well, wasn't it? You know, that Mum perhaps couldn't run after you in the park. And I'm sure you took no advantage of that whatsoever.
Definitely never.
So obviously you're very well aware of ALD in your family and the chances that you could be a carrier of ALD. Now, one of you's had a test.
We both have.
Yeah,
negative baby. ALD free since '93.
And so you're both not carriers?
No, yeah.
So
oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, I know.
So I think the last I heard, one of you had the test, but I
that was me.
Yeah, I can't remember who. That's fantastic news. That's really, really good news. So proper 50%, because this always happens. Girls don't. So,
me and Mum were convinced that I had it. I got tested when I was 16. And that was weird to go through because you have to see a few genetic counsellors.
Yeah.
And I think because 16 is the youngest age you can be tested, they sort of tried to deter me away.
Yes.
Doing it because it's quite a big thing to go through at that age. But because of a few different things about me. We were just convinced that I had it. So I'd kind of done my grieving beforehand anyway.
Well, yeah. I thought that you did because you tan.
I do tan really well. I don't look it right now because I'm pale. But
it's the lighting. Yeah. Whenever we go on holiday, I would have to sit underneath the sun thing with Dad in like factor 50, and then Mum, Ruairi, Tom, and Sinead would be sat out like around as anything.
Yeah. And I'm really clumsy, but it just turns out that's dyspraxia and not hormone function for something else rather than ALD.
But yeah, no, that's such lovely news, because it means you don't have to think about what you would do for children, if you're going to have children.
I think knowing that you've got a 50-50 chance is obviously very daunting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Being lucky.
Well, that was like, I always had in my head that I would eventually. That's not good. Sorry. I always had in my head that I would eventually get tested, and I feel like I never got around to it, and I don't know whether that was because I wasn't worried because I'd seen how well Mum had dealt with it, or whether it was maybe like a coping mechanism, like pretend it's not happening. I still not figured that out, but
you're like, I'll unpack that later.
Yeah. We'll wait till my therapist deals with that when I'm 60. But like I've been with my boyfriend for almost 7 years now, and like it's getting to the point where we're saving up for a house, like in the future we might have kids, and I just thought, like, I better get this test done before Brexit happens, and it costs me a bunch to deal with. So. Yeah.
Well, and you've both had the very best results, so
it's really lucky.
And even if you hadn't, then it gives you time to kind of get your head around it, and
I was just going to say, I think because we've been so lucky with our parents and the way that they have handled it, we both would have been equipped for the other result had we had it.
Yeah, and we both would have known that like Mum and Dad would have supported us.
Yeah, and that we were strong enough to deal with it too.
Yeah, and we just lean on the family again. Like everyone supports each other throughout the years with whatever's going on. So just would have been one of our turn, wouldn't it?
Yeah. In the limelight.
Yeah. Another trip to hospital.
Yes, I was going to say. No, you're not getting that night in hospital anymore.
I just love the experience so much. I now spend every day at the hospital.
I get enough of it.
No, it's been so good to talk to you, and you really are just fantastic the way that you've all coped with it. It's I remember when you were tiny little girls, and you just all credit to Mum and Dad, but also to the four of you, because actually you've got up and got on with it, and kind of made the best of what isn't the best situation. Obviously with Tom and everything's fine, but with Ruairi things have been very difficult sort of over the years. But
it wasn't a common upbringing.
Yeah. No, you've all done amazingly well, including having Sinead to move out, didn't you, when COVID?
Sorry?
You moved out of home.
Oh, yeah, I did. I moved in with my friends, but I've done my best to still see them from a distance.
Yeah.
A few times a week, which has been nice. But yeah, I did.
Yeah, we
leave them.
We've been sitting out in front of the house, like literally about 10 foot away. And we came a little closer. For Tom's birthday, they set the table out, like way out on the driveway, and they sat out the front as well on like the garden table, and we were eating and just shouting. And of course with Ruairi's auditory processing disorder, like, and you have to really project your voice and make sure he can hear you. So I'm sure the whole neighborhood was like,
the Corrs are having a party.
We can hear every word of it.
On my birthday, it was raining, so Mum and Dad set up a tent in the garden, and they were inside eating dinner, and me and my friends were in this little tent trying to shout across.
Yeah, I was busy that evening. / there was only one tent.
But yeah, no, I mean, you know, it's just amazing how you still all continue to cope, you know, even when we're in the midst of a pandemic.
Figure something out.
I think you end up having, like, I think we rely on dark humour quite a lot. That's kind of, as a family, that's what we go to. And we do still have like our serious moments, and we'll like chat to each other and like, but you can always kind of tell where the line is between joking and not joking.
Definitely. And we're still there for each other as well.
Yeah.
You know, it's a very loving family. You said that so convincingly. I was trying to think of a better way to phrase it, but it is. You're really
I know what you mean. Yeah, but you are a very loving family, and you know, you've all looked out for each other. Yeah, I've seen it firsthand. So.
Sinead's never climbing up anymore. I'm out of the game.
Oh, no. Thank you so much for talking to me, and obviously, you know, giving me and others an insight into, you know, kind of how positive you can come out of sort of, you know, awful situations, and you just need to sort of work together as a family and kind of find your way through. There's no kind of pathway to follow, is there? It's just kind of, you know, working to get, you know, seeing what works, and you know, it's and you know, you've just all done so fantastically well.
Thank you. That's really sweet.
You just be very proud of yourselves.
We're smiling.
You just can't see it.